now listening to Protecting Your Nest with board-certified family medicine and obesity medicine specialist Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Our journey to achieving our health-related goals is filled with many ups and downs. In a way, we should anticipate this because when we are, what we're saying to ourselves is that, for logical reasons, we know we need to change, but sometimes it's really hard to change who we are at the core. And who we are is defined by our many life experiences that have shaped us. So if you are struggling to change, don't be surprised because you are not alone. One way to overcome this struggle is to surround yourself with others who are on a similar journey. This will not only inspire you, but give you an accountability partner who will be there to redirect you when you are off track. Today, I want to introduce you to someone who you should know, especially as you are building up your team of inspiration, your team of accountability. Today's guest is Bella, also known as the Steak and Butter Gal. Bella is a Juilliard-trained pianist and violinist, having earned a master's in these disciplines, and who is passionate about the carnivore diet. By transitioning from vegan to carnivore, Bella has been able to heal the medical conditions she suffered from, as well as achieve a more ideal body weight for her. I met Bella during the recording of the Reverse Carnivore docuseries by Charles Maddox, and I've been hanging out with her and her steak and butter gang ever since. Bella, I'm so happy you joined me. I appreciate you. I appreciate the support, and I am just happy to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Hampton. We love you in the community so much, and it's just an honor to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for introducing me to your community, and I'm looking forward to sharing my perspective and learning from the community as well. So let's get started. Let's have a conversation. Let's do some icebreakers first. Let's start. I'm gonna give you, these are like quick, easy questions for you. Number one, your favorite hobby.
Oh, well, that's easy. Piano, violin.
Yes. Yes. I thought that was work. I didn't know that was a hobby. So that's good to know you still enjoy it that much.
I love it. It's now actually not the forefront of my career. It's now become my hobby. If you asked me that question maybe 6 years ago, I wouldn't say piano and violin.
Oh, cool. And what I love about your videos on YouTube is it's like art to see you kind of do your little intro on some of your videos. It's just a beautiful. And then I'm like, I didn't raise my kids well because they can't do that. So it's something.
Oh.
But I know it's a lot of hard work. So the next question is your favorite car. What kind of cars do you like?
I like any car that can fit Simba in it. Really, yeah, really, that's all I care about when it comes to, vehicle is, does it fit Simba? Is it dog friendly? Can he jump on?
Yeah.
I usually like a car that fits him in the trunk, so then
Hmm.
I can, seat my brother, my sister in the back. So anything that fits a dog and family.
That's cool. It's funny because growing up having babies, did that name come from the Lion King or no?
Yeah, it came
Yeah,
from
I
Lion King.
figured that. Seriously, we had a Simba stuffed animal version for my one of my kids,
Aw.
and literally it looked like it had been through a war because we had it so long. And we were just nervous because how do you end this relationship with Simba?
Oh, no, yeah.
And it ended up happening at some point. I think it was a moment when I think the kid's grandparent was like, "You're not going to keep." No, that was a pacifier moment because he said, "You're not going to. You're a big boy. You don't need that." And he threw it in the garbage. But Simba, I can't remember exactly, but Simba warms our heart, and we had Simba in our car many years. Trust me.
Aw, that's so
All right,
cute.
so nice story about Simba. Now, your favorite place to visit?
My favorite place to visit is anywhere that has a beach. because I currently
Nice.
live in Seattle. There really isn't
Mm,
that beachy vibe here. It's all
okay.
just nature and forest. So when I go to Los Angeles to see my siblings, that's always my favorite type of visit.
That's cool. Like, we were just in San Diego, and I love being in that part of the country.
Yeah.
And since you're musically inclined, music, what's your favorite? I'm sorry, not music, but movie. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie. I like anything by Tim Burton. Anything
Hmm.
that he makes is wonderful to
Mm,
watch.
okay.
Yeah. I don't think I have one single favorite movie, but I do love Beetlejuice. I can watch
Yes,
that
that's a crazy
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Endless
that
time.
says a lot about who you are because that's a crazy movie.
I do love the music. I love the, theatrics of it.
That's cool. Well, I do remember that movie, and I think many of us do. So thank you for that. And let's go back to that music since I brought that up.
Sure.
Where did this love for music come from?
It came from my mom forcing us to learn the instrument.
Mm.
I mean, she is the best mom ever. I would not
Hmm.
trade her for anybody else. And she was also totally a tiger mom. So that phrase
Mm.
with like Asian moms being very overbearing, she was that. But
Okay.
I'm grateful because I don't think I would have these skills under my belt at this high of a level without her kind of having a vision for us. We had
Yeah.
four
Yeah.
kids, right? So me, my two sisters, and my little brother, we all are very artistic and we have a wide array of skills, and I have to thank her for that.
And I thank you for saying that because we have stereotypes about, oh, that's a little too in that culture is too intense, right? But there's lessons to be learned. Like, in order for kids to have access to being able to do great things, you got to give them that exposure, right? And I think we tried to do that when our kids were young, and I just think that's important. So I think we learn from each other, and then we take it to as far as we need to,
Oh, yeah.
because you seem to have turned out to be a pretty good person. You seem to be well rounded.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. So let's look at another thing I wanted to ask you about. I've been previously a plant based doc. Now I'm more animal based. You also kind of made a transition. So let's talk a little bit about that. A lot of people come to this podcast to talk about that topic. What is it that, what was your experience, I guess, with those dietary patterns, and what problems were you trying to solve?
Yes. So I was vegan for 6 years straight. And when I commit to something, and again, maybe this is thanks to my mom's, how she brought me up, is when I commit to something, I really am 100% committed and I take it very seriously. And so for the vegan diet, when I started that, I was so looking forward to health benefits. I was so looking forward to losing weight because the content that I saw at that time, I was 18 years old and I hopped on YouTube, and the first thing that I searched was how to lose freshman 15, how to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And I saw a vegan called Freely the Banana Girl,
Mm-hmm.
and she was huge back then.
Mm-hmm.
And she was touting the vegan diet Raw Till 4, which
Mm-hmm.
is eat raw fruits, veg until 4 p.m., and you can eat cooked starches. That diet was what gave her her six pack. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so when I saw her videos and I continued to kind of listen in, I was like, I'm trying this immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried it and I saw weight loss. I
Mm-hmm.
felt better. I did. For an X amount of time. Like it was not forever. And that
Mm-hmm.
this is what I stress so much is when you start any new diet, fad diet, new changes in food or whatever you do to get to your goals, how does it fare out long term,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for the vegan diet that failed long term.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, the initial first few months were magical, and that could happen with anything when you start eating uh clean, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
used to eat plant oils, junk food, McDonald's, Taco Bell every single day, and then you suddenly go to a diet that's somewhat cleaner, you will obviously feel better. And that's what I felt, that initial magic. And then after a few months, that's when I was like, huh, why is my weight bouncing back?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I feeling hungry all the time, even though I just ate a huge bowl of watermelon?
Mm-hmm.
Because Freely
Right.
said you can eat that.
That's right.
Right. And it just didn't fare out long term. In fact, I ended up with no cycle, no period at all.
Mm,
My cystic acne was worse than it was when I started.
mm.
Skin was just a big issue for me in my teenage years. And the brain fog, the bloat, the gas, like just the symptoms were endless.
Man, and I know all about that. My journey sounds the same. I kind of went from vegetarian, vegan, vegetarian, but I agree. I felt better. I'll never stand before this audience and say I didn't feel better, but it just didn't last. Like at some point, still having problems with my stomach, and I may have had less than I had before on the standard American diet, but it just wasn't, it just didn't do it. So it's nice to, and I think that's important. So people, if you're on a plant-based diet, just listen to your body. Obviously,
Yeah.
you got to supplement appropriately. And if you're thriving somehow, have at it. But for most people, I find they need to get the benefits of animal product, foods in their diet, and they'll do much better. So just do your experiment. We're not gonna force you to do anything you don't want to do. And
Yes.
speaking of forcing somebody to do what they don't want to do, this whole butter thing, Miss Steak and Butter Gal, that's insanity. I still haven't gotten to the level where I'm eating butter directly. Although I will say, when we were at the Reverse Carnivore, Maria Emmerich made some nice little butter, and it had
Yeah.
this extra little something in it and I actually was able to eat it. So I don't think you're like off
Awesome.
the charts just yet anymore. But talk a little bit about that, because that's such an extreme thing to people, to literally take a stick of butter and eat it. Explain that whole story.
Yeah, and I totally get how it could shock a lot of people. And sure, even turn off a lot of people. But I'm trying to share what healed my issues and my wreck of hormones when I first started carnivore. I came to carnivore similar to why I came to vegan. It was to seek help and improvement
Hmm.
in my health
Yeah.
and also to look better. So when I went into carnivore, I was already very well informed because I watched so many videos, especially vegan to carnivore videos that were
Hmm.
all over the internet at that time. So shout out to Asa. Um, there was a Kasumi Chris. Those two
Hmm.
girls I just watched endlessly because they were vegan to carnivores and they were looking very glowy, healthy. They
Hmm.
just could not stop talking about the health benefits they felt from carnivore.
Hmm.
So, yet again, I was like, let me commit to this diet and let me just go all in. And when I started carnivore day one, by the way, the day before I was vegan. So I did this all cold turkey.
Wow. Wow.
Yep. Yep. Very intense. And do I recommend this for others? Absolutely
No,
not.
yeah.
No, no, no. Because I
No,
can
no, no.
tell you my digestion did not
Oh
like that.
yeah, I'm sure it did.
Yep. And my day one was actually very high fat. Not
Hmm.
because I was told to do that, because my body was screaming for fat. It was
Hmm.
so hungry for fat. And so there was really no fighting that. There was no denying that urge. I felt that craving for fat so strongly that I could not help but eat butter right out of the stick.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the level I was at when it came to malnourished. Yeah.
You got to
Mhm.
listen to your body
You do.
clearly, and your body was like, you've been holding out for a long time. Sounds like I remember when I
Yeah.
was vegan, plant-based, Dr. Ornish, Dr. Esselstein, the experts in that area, they would have loved you not eating all that saturated fat.
I
We now know we shouldn't fear saturated fat.
right.
But even I even have respect for those people I followed, because they were trying to do what was best in their mind based on the research they had done.
Sure.
And when I spoke at the Symposium for Metabolic Health and at Keto Orlando this year,
Nice.
I talked about how we go down these rabbit holes, right? And
Yes.
you do a Google search. In your case, it was a YouTube search, and you go down rabbit holes, and then everything that surrounds that rabbit hole is filled with the ideas of that particular ideology. And so you can't blame people for being strongly invested in how they think about these things, but I think it's important that we speak with dignity. So when I did my symposium for metabolic health discussion, it was how vegans and carnivores can live in harmony. And I just made a case for why that should be possible. And one of the examples is that most of the information on nutritional science was observational. So we really don't have, based on those studies, enough information to justify any diet. It's all
True.
association correlation. But we do want to then have intelligent, intellectually stimulating conversations once we get more quality studies. And then we can kind of pick and choose based on that. But we also want to respect the individual.
Yes.
Nobody in New York should have to, worry that their child's going to only be able to eat plants on Mondays and Fridays. Because if I'm a carnivore, that's not fair. And I certainly wouldn't do that to a vegan. I wouldn't want a vegan to come to school on Monday and Friday and only be allowed to eat meat. That doesn't make sense. That's not America. So we have to live in a world where we respect and honor each other and accept that there are different reasons why people make decisions. It could be their religion and other factors that matter. So let's talk about a typical day
Mm.
in the life of the steak and butter gal in terms of what you eat. I know it's not a big variety, but I think people need to hear that so they'll understand what it's like to be you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's start with breakfast. I usually wake up at 4 to 5 a.m. Pacific time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
I love that I can wake up early now because
Mm-hmm.
I actually did not start off carnivore having such an early day. I
Mm-hmm.
started off carnivore sleeping, needing a lot of sleep. And I do want to emphasize like a lot of people wonder, oh, am I supposed to feel this drowsy and tired all the time
Mm-hmm.
on carnivore? I feel so tired. I need to nap. I see that as a great thing
Mm-hmm.
because your body is healing. And
Mm.
especially if you're upping the fats, your body is really saying, thank you, let's rest and recover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I felt that big time. So when I first started
Nice.
carnivore, I started my days like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. sometimes. If I had school at Juilliard, obviously set the
Mm-hmm.
alarm, get up early.
Right.
But it wasn't until a couple years in when I started realizing, oh, my body needs less and less sleep now. That's
Mm-hmm.
another thing that I hear a lot about
Mm-hmm.
is carnivores needing less sleep and they still feel energetic, if not
Mm-hmm.
more energetic. So that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. So I start my day 5 a.m. First thing I do is I go outside and I ground my feet into the
Mm.
earth. Yeah. And I love that so much because it starts my morning in a very beautiful way. I am present, I am
Mm-hmm.
mindful, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm outside getting exercise too when I'm grounding with Simba.
Mm, mm, mm,
Mhm. It's just gorgeous. And then I come home and I make breakfast.
mhm,
So I love doing breakfast on days where I know my period's about to come. I have more hunger. So I listen again to my body and my appetite. My breakfasts are usually very high fat. I mean, I'm still very high fat every single time I sit down to eat carnivore. It's either 6 to 8 eggs, soft boiled, scrambled, with some meat. If it's beef, it's usually ground beef or flank and short ribs, or maybe just a juicy, fatty steak.
mhm,
If it's chicken, it's always chicken wings because it's the fattiest chicken. And if it's pork, always for fresh pork belly.
mm,
And so that's breakfast. And then I just go about my day and I eat until I'm hungry. Um, Sometimes that's a dinner, sometimes that's a lunch, sometimes it's a snack and then dinner. Sometimes it's just one meal a day.
mhm.
So it's really not predictable. It really depends on my energy levels, where I am in my cycle, how my appetite is throughout the day. But one thing is for certain, I am always 100% listening to my appetite.
Yes, and for those who have not attempted low carb, keto, or carnivore, they may look at you and say, "1 meal a day, I would be starving." And
Yeah.
and and I think one of the biggest benefits I've gotten from this dietary pattern is I don't think about eating that much. I tend to eat based on my schedule. And what happens is, and I'm a lunch and dinner kind of guy, but if I miss lunch, I mean, so often my wife will say, "Did you eat yet?" And it's like 4, and I'm like, "Oops, I forgot." But I'm not
Mhm.
hungry. So
Mhm.
it's like, do I really need to eat? And the answer is probably not. I do want to socialize that word you mentioned, which is grounding. I had not heard that term until I got my functional medicine training. And for those who are not familiar with it, and Maria Emmerich, when I talk to her, she says that when she's in Hawaii, she's doing like 6 months out of the year, she's trying to put her feet on the ground and
That's
grounding. And I learned, didn't really think about this because I didn't learn this in my training. She says when you're in water, you're still grounding too. And I hadn't really thought about that.
so
Isn't
cool.
that crazy?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, when you put your feet on the earth, you know, you're doing it for health purposes because your body absorbs the earth's electrons, and in theory, that gives you some of the health benefits. So that's why putting your feet on the ground, and they do have shoes you can buy that allows for you to kind of still do it even with something on your feet. I guess I haven't tried those yet, but just
Awesome.
a FYI for those who are checking this out. So now, when you're from a culture, people always come to me and say, well, I gotta avoid rice because in Asia they always eating a lot of rice, right? And they don't
Yeah.
understand some of the nuance. So I want you to talk a little bit about just the culture, comparing your current dietary pattern to a diet, the dietary pattern of your culture, and what impact has that had on you and your family?
Yes. I grew up eating rice every single day, every single meal.
Yeah.
I grew up eating our dishes drenched in soy sauce, in
Mm.
sugar, in
Mm-hmm.
MSG.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it is a huge cultural change when you go from traditional Chinese cuisine and with a mix of standard American diet to carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing that is similar, very similar, is it's meat heavy. Chinese cuisine is very meat heavy. Uh-huh. And Chinese people, we love our meat. We love organs, bones. Like we do really love eating nose to tail.
Mm.
And so I was used to all of that. Like I loved meat since I was a baby. My mom would feed me egg pudding, which is a very traditional Chinese dish where you
Mm-hmm.
steam eggs. And
Mm.
I ate it almost every single morning for breakfast before school.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So adjusting like cuisine wise was to me not too difficult because
Mm-hmm.
if there's meat, I'm happy. Like
Right.
I just love meat. So when I came back to eating meat and eggs from 6 years of not, right, on the vegan diet, it
Mm.
honestly was such a dream come true for me because I was already dreaming about egg pudding while I was
Mm.
vegan. And like when you dream about having something, it's probably your body like telling you, "Oh, not really
Yeah.
happy with the nutrition right now."
That's right. I love
Yeah,
that. That's
right.
amazing. And a
So
lot of,
mhm.
if you think about, so I talked about the blue zones during my talk in San Diego at the symposium,
Oh,
and
cool.
although that's not China per
Okay.
se, they put that in that Okinawa, Japan is in that blue zones plant based category, but yet one of the slides I shared was a study that showed that when they looked at the centenarians from Okinawa, Japan, guess how many vegetarians they found?
Probably 0. Yeah,
Hardly any.
yeah, yeah, 0, right.
So the whole point was we've been given this message, a perception
Yeah.
that there's this abundance of plant-based people who are living to 100. The reality is, and I'm going to make a video short because you're coaching me on this, right? And
Yeah.
in that video short, it's going to just talk about what did Dan Buettner also discover when he did his centenarian research? He discovered there are other reasons why people live long, and it may be, as the steak and butter gang can attest to, it may be that not having social isolation, having people around you who care about you and support you. So there's so many reasons why we need to be careful how we look at others people's dietary patterns, but more importantly, seems like people eating meat live pretty long, just like in Hong Kong. So I think we need to
Wow.
remove some of that fear. And that's why I'm happy that your body called out for that meat. Another cultural question I have is, and you may have to get the pronunciation, it's called mukbang.
Oh, oh,
Is it
mukbang.
mukbang?
Mukbang.
Mukbang. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that because I love culture and I think my audience would get a kick out of understanding what that is and what that's about.
So I'm actually curious, how did you or find out about
You
mukbang?
know what? Literally, it was I got it through you. I actually because I do watch your videos, girl. And I think at some point you mentioned it and I
Yes,
was
I did.
like, "What is that?" And then you talked about it. That's what kind of poked me to even think about bringing it up.
That's so cool. So mukbang is Korean. It's a
Okay.
Korean like style eating video. Basically, it's just somebody recording themselves on camera
Mhm.
with a table full of lots of food. That's
Mm.
like the one thing that happens in all mukbang is a ton of food on the table, and it usually is like really delicious food, not carnivore. This is not a carnivore, exclusive thing. It's just these Koreans, they get on camera and they eat a bunch of, like, for example, fried chicken and like all of these different meals. And you just watch the person eat it.
Mm.
That's basically that's basically the whole beauty of this video is you get to watch someone enjoy good food.
Nice.
And I love it because I look for carnivore mukbang. Okay.
Mm.
And I don't know what it is, but when I am bored or sometimes when I'm doing like an extended fast, I'm just like, what should I watch on YouTube? I'm free right now. I would rather watch carnivore mukbang than anything else when I'm fasting for some
Wow.
reason. Yeah. And it doesn't tempt me. I'm just like, ooh, that's so cool. That's so delicious. I'm going to make that
Yeah.
tomorrow. I think it's kind of like a weird pleasure that some people get just watching someone eat lots of food.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that's kinda it kinda made me think about people who some people are doing a dietary pattern like this, and they wanna maybe pick up a few pounds, and what I found
Yeah.
is one of the ways to do that is to have variety on your, plate, so
Always.
when you have variety, not necessarily non-carnivore, but just variety of different types of carnivore, and something about that for your brain, if it's just a big lump of ground beef, which I'm totally happy with, it's different than having a little, shrimp here and ground beef there, bacon there, and you just put it all together. Your brain's going to want to eat more of that,
Totally.
and maybe we can end up on one of those videos.
Yeah,
It's kind
totally.
of hard. Yeah, it's hard to pull it off when it's just one type of food. So now,
Mhm.
um, you know, I'm really trying to be a metabolic doc. Who's open to all diets,
Yeah.
leaning low carb, keto, carnivore, ketovore.
Yeah.
But we know in our world, a lot of people who may follow us are kind of leaning towards this low carb dietary stuff. But how
Mhm.
do you see people in front of you and in terms of who should and shouldn't consider this? Is this something that everybody should consider, or is it something that
Yeah.
people who are challenged should consider?
And you're speaking specifically carnivore diet, consider carnivore?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of see it now in a different way.
Hmm.
Anyone who should consider carnivore is people who want to. Because if you think, if you go out in public and you look around, yes, there's going to be a lot of overweight people who clearly
Hmm.
could benefit from carnivore, from even just keto.
Hmm.
But you cannot always put this pressure on yourself like,
Hmm.
"Oh gosh, I gotta talk to this person. I gotta talk to my aunt, my grandma,
Hmm.
uncle, because 'cause they're overweight and they're diabetic." They will never start carnivore
Hmm.
until they want to, until they need to, and
Hmm.
sometimes they do have to wait until they need to
Right.
before they will actually commit. And so if that's not the case, I now just tell myself if they don't come to me asking about
Mm.
carnivore stuff, I will not be going to them. I will not be,
Mhm. That's right.
imposing what I believe or what I know or what I've experienced even myself onto these people who I do love so much. With strangers, I kind of just mind my own
Right, right,
business
right.
right now. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
I agree with that. And you suggested that you evolved, and
Mm,
I know when I first started doing this stuff, you wanna go on the pulpit like the preacher and just preach it, you
mm,
know. But that's just not a very effective way
mhm.
to help people engage them. I think
Yep.
leading by example. A lot of people will come to you and say, "You're, oh man, you're doing pretty good. I notice your skin is doing well. It
Yeah.
seems like you have a lot of energy. Notice that your mood's pretty good all the time. What's going on?" And I think that's because we all evolve, and that evolution is not just in terms of how we message this, but it's also understanding that. I mean, we both had gone from plant based to more animal based because we evolved, and that evolution we have to be comfortable with. You may meet somebody just when they just finished watching the What the Health documentary, and they're like really motivated to do that, and then they may have to do that and evolve. So, and again, they may stay there. I have a few patients that are vegan, and they've been vegan for 30 years. So it's all about evolving, being comfortable evolving, and not getting put into like this category, being in a category that you're stuck in. I think that's really important. So,
Agreed.
now, having said that,
Mhm.
there are foods from the culture and foods from our life experiences that we really loved. So, when you think about those types of foods, are there any things that you're like, man, I'd like to have some of that today?
Never, and I can say that with confidence. Like, do
Yes.
I actually now as a long-term carnivore, do I ever have days or moments even where I'm like, "Man, I would love to have some dumplings." And yes,
Mm-hmm.
dumplings were my favorite Chinese dish, and my mom would make them from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
and her dumplings were honestly the best dumplings I've ever tasted.
Ever tasted?
Ever, yeah, and just so traditional Chinese dough, and the filling. Like, I could go on forever about how delicious it was, but
Mm-hmm.
do I ever have that craving to eat it or enjoy it for, like, just one cheat meal? Nope, I
Nope.
really don't, yeah.
Okay.
I actually watch my fiancé now,
Ah.
Max. Yeah. So he eats all of these different types of foods in front of my face, like just
Wow.
a feet away from me, right? And he now is very meat centric, which I'm so happy about,
Mhm,
but he
mhm.
still indulges here and there, which
That's right.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to impose what I feel like is the best diet onto him. And when he eats those things in front of me, I still do not feel tempted.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that may sound, um, crazy to a person who likes certain things that they're not consuming, but what I would say is that it depends on the individual. You suggested that you did have some GI stuff going on, and for me, I can't imagine going back to that life. Like, so I just had this conversation with my wife just yesterday, about popcorn, and she was gonna have a little popcorn, sugars got a little lower, and
Mm.
that was gonna be part of how she was gonna bounce it back up. Uh, and as I smelled the popcorn, her question was, "Don't you want some popcorn?" And the answer is, "Hell yeah." I'm a little different than you. I said, "Hell yeah."
That's funny.
But I also knew that there are times when I have something like that and it irritates me.
Yeah.
So I don't know when that's gonna happen. I think the only time I push the envelope is if we go to a movie, but for the
Right.
most part, I tend to I don't want it because I don't wanna if the outcome's gonna be my stomach's not happy,
Yep.
I just don't want it. So for those who are so we're kinda lucky in a way, you can call it unlucky. We're lucky
Sure.
because our bodies have clearly reminded us that there's a consequence. Now some people will eat these things and it won't bother them at all.
Mm.
And if that's your story, have at it if you're metabolically healthy. But for me, I just stay away. So I think that's why some people are thinking, I can't understand why they wouldn't crave these things. I just don't. So let's think about the steak and butter gang, and you hear a lot of success stories. Any success stories that kind of stick out in your head in terms of people who have joined a group and shared?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I do have to shout out my team. Each and every one of these people on the team who dedicate so much of their time and passion to this community have amazing transformations and success stories. And
Mm-hmm.
you're very, very close with Emily.
Mm-hmm.
She, like, just her story alone is just a beacon of light for so
Mm-hmm.
many women her age.
That's right.
Sh She's had 4 kids. She lost 150 pounds. If you just look at her before and after photo, you understand that she has just healed more than
Mm-hmm.
you can know. And she's a warrior and she's just such an inspiration to all of us. And then you look at Raymond's before and after photos, and he starts from somewhere with a sad face, sad look on his face, and with like a pot belly, right? And then you look
Mm-hmm.
at this picture next to him, and he legit has a 6 pack. So
Like
yeah,
legit.
yep, that alone is just like, man, what a phenomenal transformation. And that's only just physical. You
Mm-hmm.
can't really see or take photos of what's going on inside our bodies and what's actually healing. But I see these people, all the members, almost every single day on Zoom. And I can tell you, all of these members, I can notice from day one of the challenge until like day 30, everybody is different. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
either more energetic, slimmer, smiling more confident. There's always going to be changes that are positive as long as these people commit to this lifestyle. So, do these Zoom meetings that we do in the gang help? I would say absolutely, because you have
Mm-hmm.
something to look forward to every day. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to hop on this call tonight and I'm going to share my victories and people are going to celebrate it,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to go to a party and I get to report back to the gang that I succeeded and they're going to celebrate me. So that aspect of connection, it I feel like for a lot of newbies who keep failing, is the missing link to
Mm-hmm.
success. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
The connectivity is also on your YouTube channel, and um, when you started your YouTube channel, what kind of sparked that? And since you've started it, what's like the message? What's the purpose of your YouTube channel?
Mm. Okay. So my my big sister, she shout out to her because she told me, Bella, you need to start filming mukbangs. She literally told me that I need to start filming mukbangs because she saw how much meat I could eat in one sitting when I became
No, not
carnivore.
you, not you.
Yes.
You?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. She said, "Wow, you eat 5 pounds of meat per day." I
Wow. That's a
actually
lot.
started I started
That's a lot.
carnivore eating a lot, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then so she was like, "Why don't you just share how much you eat on on YouTube because
Mhm.
people love that."
Mhm.
And I was like, "I guess I'll consider it, but I don't know if I wanna be seen that way, like that
Mhm.
girl who only eats, eats, eats."
Right.
But either way, she encouraged me to just film anything, and she
Mhm.
bought me a camera, and this camera she
Mm.
got me as a gift, I still use to this day.
Wow.
So I would say she was the catalyst. And when I started Steak and Butter Gal, my vision was I want to share my carnivore healing journey because I
Mhm.
have so much I want to heal. And I do want to share it with people who are interested. And in return, I get to stay accountable. So
Mhm.
actually, from day one, I was kind of looking for that missing link myself.
Mhm.
What's going to keep me accountable? How can I get more
Mm.
connection? And to this day, it's very much still a big core of my content. Mhm.
I like that. And I'll be honest, the podcast, other than getting a chance to get to know people like yourself,
Yeah,
is also in a way an accountability partner.
absolutely.
And it forces me to learn.
Yes.
things, right? And since my scope is broader, where I talk about my nest and rope and relationships and other stuff, there are
Yes.
times when I have to do a little research and learn a little something. I'm not talking about
Sure.
something I'm as familiar with. So I love that. So I appreciate you having that channel out there. And I know you start some of your videos with the music. We kind of touched on that, but I just want to circle back. That's some serious training you've gotten. So could you
Thank you.
clarify your plans musically? What are you
Oh, yeah.
planning to do with all of that great education?
Uh, yeah, that's such a great question. And do I know the exact answer? Gosh, I wish. I wish I
Right.
knew, you know, but I do think about it and I ponder on it all the time. And trust
Hmm.
me, whenever I call my mom who lives in China, she forces me to think about it.
She
She
can't help
really
herself.
does. So she, as my mom who cares so much about our lives, she always asks me, "So, are you going to complete your doctorate in piano? When are you going to go back to school?" Right now, when she asks me a question like that, I know the definitive answer to that is no. I'm not going back to school
Right.
because I feel like I've had enough education. I've had
Hmm.
6 years of training in piano and violin, well, way more because I started
Hmm.
these instruments when I was 10. And I see myself contributing to society not by going back to school, but
Mm.
by doing other things that I love and that I know I'm good at. And does it include music? I can 100% say it always will
Yes.
include music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's very much who I am.
Hmm.
But am I going to go back to a career as a performing
Hmm.
musician?
Hmm.
That is really hard to say. I
Yeah.
feel like I would do it if I had an agency who said, "We'll sign you right now and you get to
Right.
talk about Carnivore Diet when you're on stage."
Right. Right.
Right? Now
Right.
that I would be like, "Yes, I'll drop everything. I'll do that now."
That's cool.
But carnivore and just talking about food and health and wellness is so much a part of me now that
Yeah.
I don't think I can drop this life to go
That's
back
right.
to just
Right.
classical music, you know?
And the impact is going to be
Oof.
amazing. And
Yeah.
actually, I think about one of the people I met at the Keto Orlando was a guy named Russ, and Russ has a new channel, Homesick Buckeye, because he's from Ohio and he's sick of he's in Florida, and but but what I like about him is that he sings and he also is comedian. He's funny, so he's
Ooh,
bringing some funny to the keto movement.
love
And
it.
what I see for you is a similar thing in that you can incorporate that gift of music as you do with your videos, and it
Mhm.
adds a whole nother like level, because part of us being engaged is to spice it up a little bit. I won't be playing pianos in my videos, but having I will not, but having a way to express this great message of metabolic health through carnivore and adding the spice of that. And again, like you said, if there's a way to do both, then that's even better. So I really
Yeah,
am happy that you're in this community, adding that different little spice. I think everybody has a hidden talent,
everyone.
and you're just allowed to share that talent in this platform. So I love that. Um,
Thank
Real
you.
quick, how much do you have to practice to maintain that skill?
Oh, to maintain.
Yes. Is it like riding a bike, or do you have to actually sit in front of that piano or the violin to maintain it?
So here's the interesting thing. I thought you were going to ask how many hours of practice do you have to do to get to this
Right.
level.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's just say that was the question. Then I would say actually you need 6 to 8 hours daily of practice
Ugh,
to
that's
get to that
amazing. Just
level.
to get there.
Just to get there. Of course, if you're born talented with a gift, yeah, and there's plenty of those musicians,
Mhm.
you could get away with a couple hours less per day, but it's grueling practice to get to that level. Now,
Mhm.
to maintain it is a different world because once it's in your hands and
Mhm.
once it's in your brain,
Yeah.
you can always take a break and get back to that level. But I would not take a break longer than 6 months, you
Mhm.
know? So for those who are already at just a performance level, I see a lot of musicians who don't touch the piano for a month and then come
Mm-hmm.
back, and then they practice maybe like 6 hours a day and they're right back where they left
Got you.
off, you
Okay,
know?
cool. That's good to
So,
know.
yeah.
Okay. One more music question. I'm done with that. Um, I guess I couldn't know which one is harder to learn, but with those two types of musical, uh, you know, pieces of, tech, whatever you want to call it, which
Sure.
one is harder to learn?
Yeah.
Uh, and or I guess I'm assuming the maintenance is similar, but what's your answer to that? Because they both the
Mm.
violin in my brain seems harder, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, what do you think?
Yeah.
For me, because I learned both, hands down, piano is harder.
Really?
Yes. Yes. And I'll tell you why, because with violin is just one voice. You're
Okay.
just singing one melodic line.
Okay.
Whereas when you're playing piano, you're using all 10 fingers and you are playing a whole orchestra of voices.
Right.
So that in like music is in the music world, we always talk about how many instruments are you mimicking? How many voices are you playing right now?
Okay.
Violin is always like one singing melody, always gets the
That's right.
spotlight. It's always the
Right.
opera, the
That's
operatic
true.
tune. Sometimes the technique will get harder when you play an accompaniment with the opera singing voice on your violin.
Okay,
That's when it
cool.
gets hard. But piano, it's always at least two, three, four, five voices you're playing.
And your feet too. You gotta do stuff with your feet, right? It's
Exactly.
a lot going on. Oh
Yeah,
my god. Yeah, that just seems, but it also seems like a great skill to
brain development.
acquire. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's gotta be good.
it
Now
is.
now real quick, any advice you would give to a person who's hearing us? Maybe they're new. I know when we did our hanging with the gang segment, the young lady who one of the ladies asked a question, it was like 5 weeks, right? So yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to anybody who's just getting
Mhm.
this started so they can walk towards metabolic health?
Oh, I love it. So besides joining a group who supports and loves you, I would say just eat what you love, really, because
Mm.
it's just so many new carnivores. I get DMs from these new carnivores on
Mhm.
Instagram every single day, and they have not even started carnivore, and they're already asking me very advanced questions. I'm like, you shouldn't even think about that,
That's right. That's right.
especially since you're not even started or on day one, week one, even. Just eat what you love that is carnivore, that is meaty, cheesy, like enjoy the
Mhm.
cheese. You
Mhm.
can enjoy those beautiful sauces. It's fine. You don't have to be
Mhm.
strict carnivore when you first start. And also, just touching back to what I said in the beginning, do not do it cold turkey. Just
Right, right.
ease
Don't
in.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's good advice, and I appreciate that. And but you did start with the having support. So maybe
Oh, yeah.
one more time,
Mhm.
touch on if somebody needed support through the Steak and Butter Gang, how would they access that? How would they do that?
Yeah. So the easy URL that you can type into any internet browser is SBG, S as in steak, BG, and meat, like eat fatty meat, meetup.com, sbgmeetup.com. And you hit enter and you will arrive at the landing page of the Steak and Butter Gang. From there, you can choose how you want to enter. We usually,
Okay.
promote the upcoming month's challenge, and
Hmm.
you can go ahead and sign up and join us immediately. Uh, or you can email me for a free link to the forum, just the forum
Hmm.
alone. It's not going to include the live calls or anything, but it's a great place to start and just hang
Hmm.
out. And it's free.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will give my email and the links, of course, to Dr. Hampton if he wants to share
Hmm.
it. But we welcome anyone, anytime. If you need help, you're welcome.
Love it. Love it. So let's kind of wrap up with the obvious question that I ask everybody, which is my nest and rope.
Yeah.
Why do I have a nest and rope? For those who are new to it, because I found that the root cause of why we get sick, and I learned this from my functional medicine tree, so you can always search that and look at the roots. The root cause of so-called chronic medical conditions are easy to identify. It's our diet. It's exercise or lack thereof. It's not getting enough sleep or having stress. It's not recovering from trauma.
Yeah.
It's 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 having thoughts that don't serve us. Some of our thoughts are self-limiting, and then we need a rope to get up to the tree, and that's the relationships. I have a new relationship with you and the steak and butter gang, right? So that's a healthy relationship. We want to make sure that the organisms and pollutants in the world are not harming us. We want to
Mhm.
make sure that our emotions are safe, and we want to make sure our environment, our life experiences are ones that serve us. So when you think about that nest and rope and you think about the next 12 months, are there areas in your life that you're going to give additional attention
Yeah.
as you try to achieve your health related goals?
Yes. I think I've entered a new era. I'm 27, just turned 27. And I think I have realized just how important mental health is.
Hmm. Yes.
I have definitely neglected that up until like just a couple months ago. And I
Hmm.
didn't realize that there are things that you can do or you should be doing every day to cultivate a very healthy mental health, a vibrant,
Hmm.
calm, present mental health. And I feel like that is so hard to do in this current age because of social media.
Hmm.
There is it's just so easy to like go on social media, your favorite app, and not get
Hmm.
off of it until hours later. So just being mindful of that one thing, I feel like can already make a big difference in your mindfulness and your mental health.
Hmm.
And for my young, females, males, or just anyone who's younger who loves social media, who's watching, and who find themselves feeling down, depressed, worse after
Hmm.
going on social media, you need to stop the doom scrolling. Like that's called doom scrolling when you just don't stop scrolling and then you start comparing yourself to everyone that you're looking at and then feeling so bad about yourself.
Hmm.
That really affects your self confidence and your self esteem. But mental health is something that I will definitely invest a lot more in and continue to.
Hmm.
And the physical health I've pretty much got down because I figured it out.
Yeah.
Carnivore, high fat, it's working.
Yeah.
It's still
Yeah.
working. And then with the mental health, I'm still learning. Like I'm
Yeah.
still cultivating that.
Yeah. And it's not just, we already know keto for refractory mental illness. That study with Dr. Georgia Ede and Dr.
Yes.
Eric Westman gives us a template for success with carb restriction, and carnivore is in that bucket. But there's other parts to that. And if my wife's listening to affirmations in the morning, that's helping her mental health. How you see the world and being grateful, that helps your mental health.
Yes.
Not stop watching the news. That helps your mental health, and the politics and all of that other nonsense. So what you want to do is you want to, and I did a great podcast, episode 14, How We Think. And in that episode, I remind people that there's a bodyguard uh, that's sitting right there outside your brain. And that bodyguard
Mhm.
is there to see who's trying to get into the club, right? Well,
Mhm.
sometimes you got to let the bodyguard do what bodyguards do and say, you're not coming up in here.
Yeah.
But just as importantly, if they slide through past the bodyguard, you'll have so much good stuff in there because you did affirmations or listened to something positive that there's really not a lot of room for the negativity, and it'll allow you to kind of have a tool to deal with it. So I appreciate
Yes.
that focus. It's probably one of the most important things we can do is protect our mind,
Yeah.
how we think, and
Oh
you
yeah.
could argue the nutrition's right there with it. So I appreciate that. You've given us the URL for the gang.
Yeah.
How can my followers find you elsewhere?
Steak and Butter Gal all across the platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, or which is called X now, I think. And
Yeah, X.
yeah, and then the new Instagram Threads and YouTube, just Steak and Butter Gal spelled out all across.
Wonderful. And we did record a very brief video that'll be on YouTube about struggle
Mm,
and why it's important to be connected to a group when you're struggling. So I appreciate you doing that as well. But most importantly, just happy that I met you in
me too.
Costa Rica with the
Yeah,
crew. And I'm so happy you're part of my family now. I didn't know I was twice your age, but we're not gonna say nothing about that. We'll put that on mute. But it's all good. I'm hanging with everybody, and I
yeah,
appreciate that. I wish I could meet. I want to meet the older guys like Dr. Richard Bernstein of the Diabetes Solution. I want to meet people on all ends of the spectrum, and we all have a role to play. And I really appreciate the role you're playing in the
so much.
community. So thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast, Bella.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hampton. This was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed every moment. And hey, guys, you met Bella. If you didn't know who she was, she's passionate about meat, and we learned a little bit about her passion for music. And she's not afraid to eat butter, guys. She is a butter eating lady, and I appreciate that. And I'm going to try to get better with that. I think her social media, YouTube, and her steak and butter gang are,
Yes.
bringing hope and
Oh,
support and inspiration to so many people, and that may be the missing link. So many people who are struggling, as that video short we did suggests, they're struggling because they don't have support. So maybe being part of that group, or at least testing the waters, is the way to go. And even Dr. Hampton needs a place to grow and share my insights, and a community to support me, which is why I am also now part of the Steak and Butter Gang, hanging out and sharing my messages of healing as well.
yes.
And let's be clear, there is no doubt that one of the biggest predictors of longevity, as the Dan Brutner guy of the Blue Zone suggested, one of the most important is being in a strong community that provides support. So if you plan on living a long time, you got to be around people that's going to support you. My hope is that today's episode added value to your life and helped inspire you. And of course, provided a place for you to receive support. So for those who have joined us today, check out the comment section and maybe make a comment about what you learned today or anything you'd like to share. And I appreciate you joining us. And of course, you, Bella, as well.
Thank you.
And until we do it again, guys, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest. You've been listening to Protecting Your Nest with Dr. Tony Hampton. For more, visit drtonyhampton.com.